Good morning, folks. The core meeting is still, or daily stand-up is just running a little bit over, so we may get a couple more people in a little bit. Morning, Josh.
Hi, Mark.
All right. Looks like the people from the core meeting are filtering in here. All right. Let's get started on some of these PRs. All right. Kifu has a very nice little PR here that is inspired by code in both C-star and in FIO to use a user space IO get event for libIO. And the gist of it is that it saves a syscall, which is really nice. Hasn't tested it yet, and I think needs to implement some kind of fix. But otherwise, this will be interesting to see how much this helps, and also to compare it to some of the new IOU ring stuff that was recently written, which hopefully we're going to test internally soon. I'm kind of waiting until kernel 5.1 comes out and is official, but yeah, both of those things will be very interesting to see. Jason wrote some support in librd for supporting zero copyrights via the C API. He said he's seeing about a 4% performance improvement, or maybe it was a CPU reduction. Well, anyway, he's seeing some benefit from it. So that's been reviewed, and I assume hopefully will merge soon. There's a couple of different Crimson things here. Just general, I think, experiments with different things to see if we can improve performance in different ways. Batching right now in both the read path and the write path looks like it's kind of a current thing, although not improving things much from what I've heard so far. Let's see, there's this load PGs making it multi-thread versus single-threaded. I'm not actually sure in what circumstances that significantly improves things, but there was some report in there that step was taking 20 minutes in one case. So I guess it is a big deal.
It helps with really large OMAP databases in particular. Just improves
Okay.
startup time.
Okay. Is that because with OMAP when you're well, how does like multi-threading it help? I guess is the question I have. Is that because you can now just do like parallel reads from RocksDB and get better parallelism?
So you're reading basically reading the PG logs out of RocksDB, so you're able to probably utilize multiple CPU cores now, and I'm guessing you're often CPU bound when you're doing those reads otherwise.
Is that on our end, or is that just the fact that we multi-thread it makes it so that we can, like, RocksDB can get higher throughput? Do you know?
Yeah, I think it means that it's on our end, the fact that we're only reading a single PD at a time normally. So
okay,
doing more than one read at a time makes sense there.
Okay. Yeah, I was kind of curious if it was like the decode step, or what it was exactly that we were kind of parallelizing well, and what was slow in the single case.
Yeah, I think it's the reading. I'm not certain though.
Okay. Cool. Okay, so let's see. There's this common optimizing code UTF-8 that I believe the author works on C-star and is pulling some of this stuff from some of these ideas for things from work that they've done. So that author also was the one that wrote the optimization for check UTF-8 that merged last week. So Yep, somebody's looking closely at some of this, which is very good. Um, let's see. I already talked about some of the Crimson stuff, which apparently I need to finish the description on that. Let's see. Kifu merged this PR for no need to set the connection for message from Majian Peng. I think that was just some kind of oversight where we were doing extra work we didn't need to be doing. Let's see. What's updated here? Crimson stuff. There's this EC Stripe cache one that I think Sam is continuing to discuss with the author. I think it was complicated enough that I wasn't quite sure what was going on in it. Adam's got, I think, a new force push on his two things. Adam, do you want to talk about your stuff? Anything new? Okay, moving on. Uh,
I
oh,
heard
and
Adam
then,
talking in his office. I think he's muted though.
oh, okay. Can't hear you, Adam. I see you're unmuted in Blue Jean, but I think it must be mic level. Still can't hear you. Well, in the meantime, oh,
So what I said was,
there we
I
go. Yep.
I have finished coding it. I've run it through tests, and I am currently banging on it to make it stop failing the tests. And I will be happy to accept any code reviews from anyone who feels like code reviewing it.
Yay! That's fantastic. Yes, code reviews. That's I've been trying to get a code review of some of my stuff too. I think we all want reviews. Not enough people do it all. Well, that's good news, Adam. Excited to hear it. And our other Adam has been he updated this PR for aging tests for Blue Store allocators. I know Sage was hoping that we would be able to turn this into a unit test. So I think he's working on trying to do that. So I'm not quite sure what the current status is. Okay, and then we've got a bunch of stuff in the no movement column again. The two here that I feel slightly guilty about that I need to, well, three that I need to look at. This event ePoll one, it'd be good for somebody to look at so we don't let that just fall away. And then also this introduced new IOU ring, IO engine, and I do plan on looking at that once 5.1 lands, just because right now it's all still kind of a little experimental. Oh, and then the one other one is that I should probably update this one of Igor's for auto tuning more aggressive, making the auto tuning more aggressive on startup. I suspect though that we'll need to change that slightly since we introduced pulled the priority cache manager out of Blue Store and made it its own thing. So yeah, that's kind of it. Unless anyone else has something in this list that they want to talk about. All right.
Some notice about the first item in no movement list. It has been approved by Sage recently. So hopefully we'll have prefetch for RocksDB in master shortly.
Excellent. That's good to hear. All right.
I was talking.
Sorry,
It's
what was that?
Mohammed. Hey, Mark, it's Mohammed. I have a small thing.
Yes, absolutely. Go ahead.
A few weeks ago, we talked about the overhead of dout in the messenger. Specifically, there was this one function that really takes. I forgot what the name was. Just let me find it. Just 1 second.
Yep. Debug MS1.
Pre-dispatch in the dispatch queue.
Okay.
Yeah. Because it's a huge logging line and a bunch of gathering, a bunch of string copying. So I did replace it with an LTTNG tracing statement, and I benchmarked it on a vStar cluster locally only. I don't have an actual cluster that I can test it on yet, but I did see in some cases the exact same IOPS and latency, and in other cases I've seen up to 25% improvement for latency with the Ratos bench. So it's not really definitive, but either LTTNG can be faster, or it's exactly the same as just plain dout. But dout is never better, so I guess that's kind of an indication that there really could be something there.
So since that time in master, we ended up changing the defaults so that we're not calling that at all. We changed it from debug MS1 to debug MS0. But it's still worth looking at this because that is a useful line potentially for debugging. So when you saw it better, was that with like small object sizes or small writes?
It was the 4 MB, I think, default Rados bench parameters. But yeah, I expect smaller, better improvement with small IO for sure, as you're saying. Just because I didn't have it, I didn't really dig much into it yet. Just because I won't really trust anything that comes out of the vStar cluster.
Sure.
But I guess it's kind of an indication that there might be something there. I'm hoping that to be able to try it once I have, a real hardware to try it on.
Okay.
Yeah, that's it. Sorry, not really interesting or conclusive, but other than to say that I've seen some improvement on the vStar cluster.
Okay. Well, yeah, that sounds hopeful.
Yeah, that's it.
So for people that are on the call that are interested in like logging, what are people's current thoughts on LTTNG, our own kind of like binary log format, other things? Does anyone have any strong opinions on kind of direction that we could go here?
Sounds like from
definitely.
Go ahead.
I think we definitely want a binary log format of some sort, just because we spend so much overhead in parsing. I know Matt had a strong interest in LTTNG, and that's probably a good way to start looking at it. It would also sort of give us localization for free, which I don't know how much we care about, but it's nice to have.
Yeah, I do have a PR that has changed all the out statements in BlueStore to LTTNG, and I've actually tested, done a bunch of benchmarking on a real cluster, but it was spinners. So of course, I don't really expect a lot of improvement just because the overhead of IO is so much greater than the actual latency of logging. And I didn't see really great improvement. Let me just find the result of the benchmark. Maybe I can share them now. But the great thing about the LTTNG is the binary format. So there's like a 70% improvement of disk space for logs. So this is huge. In terms of performance, there wasn't really anything very interesting on Spinner's cluster. But the real, I guess, pain would be in terms of usability. just because the dout statement is so easy for developers, whereas with LTTNG and my PR, I have like a script that parses the code and generates LTTNG files, which are then compiled. Anyway, it's a huge pain to actually use it. So I'm not really sure how interesting it would be to really convert it, all dout statements to LTTNG.
I kind of suspect that in the long run, we'll want to continue to have like text-based logging that's more user-oriented. That's just easy as it is now. Well, easier than it is now to parse. Make it human readable, right?
Yeah.
Whereas then we have like a binary log format where we shove stuff that users are almost entirely uninterested in, but we're interested in.
Yeah, I guess maybe a hybrid, as you're saying. I guess, right?
That just seems like it might be a way we could go, I guess, to me. But
Yeah, Mark, to me that's kind of already what we've been doing with like the cluster log as more of the user-oriented output, and the existing kind of local logging from daemons, more developer-oriented stuff. So
yeah,
I have no issue with making the developer stuff like binary or harder to extract exactly if it's faster or it takes much less disk space.
yeah.
I just shared the PR that I have open to work in progress, but I specifically shared a line that this is an example of how to replace a dout statement with the LTTNG one. I don't know if you guys have opened it, but anyway, it goes from a simple dout to like this trace process protrusive extends along is the name of the trace point, and then you have to specify the type of your payload for each value.
Sure.
Specify a name and the name that you want, and specify a name and the value. It already adds it's already more complicated than what it was. And then
Yes.
there's a script that will open this CC file, parse it, and generate files for LTTNG to actually create libraries and link them and whatnot. It's pretty and then you need to make sure that the LTTNG daemon is always running. It can't crash. If it crashes, then you're not logging anymore. I mean, yeah. So there are some limitations. LTTNG is not really, it's not a syslog kind of thing. It's not really an alternative for syslog. Using it, I mean, I'm sure we could use it here, but it's not really the case it was made for, and hence there's a bunch of limitations. So I don't know, maybe I should talk with Kifu. I know he looked a lot into it, and now that he's doing Crimson, and he did talk about logging C star, there might be a better alternative. And I think really the biggest thing was just getting rid of strings. That would help a lot, because with LTTNG there are no string passing,
Sure.
Otherwise, it's just micro optimizations that aren't really worth it, and because we're dealing with storage, right? So the
Well, we
micro
also
optimization.
have.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, we also have the setting where we keep some logs in memory where we're paying a bunch of, in case of a crash, where we're still paying all the string overhead without the I/O in the usual case. So that at least would be worth trying to cut down. I mean, if we have that as a common configuration.
It's maybe worth even trying to cut down the string creation entirely, like Mohammed's suggesting. We can get to that point without LTTNG or another form of binary logging. Maybe we can adapt something with the C-star logging framework too. Like he was looking at, I'm not sure. But
yeah,
like as Mohammed has said, like the string overhead is just humongous, and is the dominating factor here.
And because the string overhead is so enormous, I see locking contention in the logging. It's actually kind of funny. with all of the different TP-OSD-TP threads, trying to log at the same time, you start contending on that lock that's there. That's crazy.
Yeah, I completely agree with Josh. I guess the side effect of moving to LTTNG would be forcing the developers to think about the log line, which is like the actual, so reducing it and making it shorter, which is actually what will improve it, and not necessarily the logging infrastructure, in my opinion. That's why I really kind of lost excitement over it, because maybe like this PR works, but in terms of usability, it's not made for that. TNG is not made for that. It would really be forcing it. There are some things that can go wrong at runtime.
Looking at the code, it does look really clunky, honestly.
Yeah, exactly. And there's no really alternative. The alternative, if you wanted to make it as straightforward as the out would be, for each log line, you'd need to go and kind of declare an LTTNG trace point for each log line. Just a lot of work for a simple statement. I guess something that I can do is share the benchmark numbers that I have on the spinner with you guys and Kifu, and maybe raise this point and see what we do with this PR. Either I continue working on it, or we just close it and we can look at C star. Or maybe just going over the logging statements that are known, probably the ones in the messenger and the ones that are often called, and reducing them. Maybe that will just make enough of a difference.
So,
Anyway.
Mohammed, I know you're talking primarily about spinners, but what about, when we get into the all flash and all NVMe environments, is there more likelihood of impact there?
In my opinion, the gain would be more pronounced on a first device. I didn't benchmark it, so I can't really measure it. I can't, say if it would be worth it or not. It might be, honestly, it might be, but I don't know. What do you think, Mark, or someone else?
I did some tests just with debug MS1 a little while back, so I'll paste those in the chat window here. Give me a sec to find them again. Other people can keep talking. I'll just look for these.
Mohammed, when we get together in Barcelona, we might be able to chat. I may be able to provide some short-term access to hardware with some P4800s to test this on, if you want.
Okay, yeah, that'd be great. And please let me know in advance. That way I can prepare a binary that will be ready
Sure.
to use.
I am still looking for these. Did I call them? Oh, there we go. All right, here's a link. And you have to scroll down a fair ways before you get to the graphs. So Radic a while back really zeroed in on that exact thing that you were just talking about, Mohammed, with debug MS1 as being kind of the primary culprit for when we were seeing debugging overhead. And so the first tab here shows the percentage difference, and then the second tab shows the raw performance in each case. And this was done on NVMe. And kind of the whip piton was a kind of a quick and dirty attempt that Sage made to see if cutting out some intermediate code helped, but it didn't really make a huge difference.
But are these numbers reproducible, or are they? Seems like in some cases there's like a 10% difference.
So for large IOs, the difference is pretty minimal, right? You don't the overhead of the logging line is not significant. It's in the 4K cases, like when you're really CPU limited, it's more prevalent, right? So if you're really CPU limited and you are doing like 4K, well, basically any kind of 4K IO, but the biggest one was probably sequential writes. In that case, it was like a 75% performance improvement with debug MS 0.
Wow, that's substantial.
Yeah, but let me reiterate, this is like a super CPU limited case, right? This is like half a core allocated to each OSD with NVMe drives. So
Yeah, when did this land in master? The MS equals 0.
That was maybe a month or two ago, I think. Let me find it.
Yeah, about a month ago. I think March, end of March or something.
Okay.
Yeah, it should actually be in the list here somewhere. We were talking about it in some of the previous performance meetings.
Mark, I pasted the PR in the chat. So.
Oh, perfect. Thank you. Good deal. So yeah, gist of it is, especially if you're CPU limited, it really is a big impact. Like so in this like sequential read case, it kind of shows it well. Where if you're CPU limited, it's really bad. Then once you get up to like 1.5 cores per OSD, that's in that case for reads no longer were really CPU limited at all, and there was still like a somewhere between like a 15 and 20% overhead for having it, or you gained like 15 or 20% by disabling it. So even once you were not CPU limited, there was still an improvement. It just wasn't as noticeable as if you're significantly CPU limited.
Thanks.
Yeah. All right. Anyone have anything else they want to talk about this week? All right. Well, then, good discussion, guys, and we'll meet again next week. Have a good
Thanks.
one.
Yeah.
Yeah.